Hello and welcome to the Chinese Grand Prix race notebook. Lewis Hamilton has made it 3 races in a row with a win and only 4 points now behind in the championship race with Nico Rosberg after Mercedes picking up another 1-2 with Rosberg. He had a tough race, obviously he had no telemetry during the whole race, but after a poor start went down to about 6th place from starting 4th, managed to get back through to make it another 1-2 finish for Mercedes and another 2nd place for Rosberg, his 3rd in a row. But the main story today was at Red Bull, and Ricciardo has just been dominating Sebastian Vettel at the moment, which is amazing to see because Vettel is not liking it at the moment because yet again there was more team orders from Red Bull. There was team orders in the last race, but for strategy wise it was probably best that the team orders went away because Ricciardo was on the soft tyre, Vettel was on prime, but this time both were on prime and there was only a 3-lap difference between the 2 pit stops, and Ricciardo was still told he can overtake Vettel and Vettel was told to move aside, but Vettel did not like that at all and he was told the team tough luck, he ain't getting past me. And yes, Vettel might have said, oh yeah, I did let him through eventually, there was no point holding him up, he was much faster than me, but Vettel made a mistake going into turn 1, he went in far too deep, realised Ricciardo had the inside and made sure that he just did not collide into Daniel Ricciardo, and Ricciardo went through. So he did not allow him through. I think it looked that he allowed him through, but he went in too deep. If you watch the replays, he went in far too deep. Just realised that Ricciardo had the inside and just held his line and made sure they didn't have a collision, which was probably the most sensible thing to do. Ferrari look okay with Fernando Alonso picking up a 3rd place. It was very good for Ferrari after the news of losing Stefano Domenicali earlier in the week and Mario Materacci coming in to replace. It was a good start for Alonso picking up 3rd, and I think Stefano Domenicali will be quite happy with that. And maybe, you never know, because that was still kind of him and it's still kind of his team, so maybe it was a bit too early to leave. In my opinion, maybe it was a bit too early to leave, but he said he resigned off his own back and said it was the right time to leave, and let's see if Ferrari now can actually improve this season. Kimi Räikkönen though, not looking too good at the moment, still struggling with the balance of the car, just not finding it, getting to grips with it. It's kind of the same story at Red Bull really. Ricciardo finding the car much to his liking, but Vettel's not there yet. It seems to be the similar story at Ferrari. McLaren are well off the pace. It's not very good for McLaren as well. We have Ron Dennis coming in trying to pick up the pieces from Martin Whitmarsh because it wasn't very good from Martin Whitmarsh. But nothing's changed really. Magnussen looked very downbeat after the race in his post-race interviews, and he looks like he needs some real motivation as long as Jenson Button, because 2 races now they didn't score any points. It's very similar to last season. They're the worst Mercedes engine-powered team, and that is not where Ron Dennis wanted to come in team, and he was asserting all that dominance at the beginning of the season, saying, oh yes, we're going to make sure McLaren are back to winning ways, and it's not happening, and he's beginning to eat his own words. Williams, the main reason why Massa had that problem at the pit stop was because the rear tyres were on the wrong way round, so the left was on the right and the right was on the left, and obviously tyre swapping is now banned in Formula 1, so they had to change the tyres on, and amazingly, if I heard they could have managed to get away with it, but they wouldn't have got away with it anyway because the FIA know what tyres is a barcode thing. But if the problem was when they realised if he pressed the undo button because the gun was on for the other tyre, so it was on the section for that tyre, and he didn't change it. That's what Williams says, so therefore that's why he couldn't get the tyre on once they eventually got it round there, and they had to use the spare gun, which was loaded in the right position. That's why they were able to get the tyre on. That was a problem with Massa, and Bottas had a strong race but could not beat Hulkenberg towards the line at the end. That moves me nicely on to Force India, who had a very solid weekend yet again. And they sit 3rd in the Constructors' table, which is good for Force India. They're ahead of McLaren and Ferrari at this present moment, and both scoring a double point scoring position, so that was very good for Force India. Toro Rosso, yet again, more points from Danny Fiat. He is having a very strong start to the season. Yes, he's picking up the 10th place points, but that's where Toro Rosso want to be. They're just accumulating points, and the more points they can accumulate, when Lotus come back, it depends where they'll probably be racing Toro Rosso and Lotus together, I reckon. So it's good that Toro Rosso get a bit of a start, because then when Lotus starts scoring points, because they're getting closer to actually having a car that's ready to start scoring points, and I think Grosjean would have done it today if he didn't have that 4th gear problem, which was a shame for Lotus. Sauber though, they don't look strong. Oh, actually, before I move on to Sauber, Toro Rosso, some rumours coming out that Jean-Eric Vergne will be replaced by Carlos Sainz Jr., which I think will be totally unfair, because Jev has had a very good a very good start to the season. He's been a bit unlucky, just hasn't fallen in the right place for him at certain moments, and he had a good solid race there. Yes, he was behind Danny Fiat, but he had a good solid race, and we know that Jean-Eric Vergne gave Daniel Ricciardo a hard time, and now look at Daniel Ricciardo's giving Sebastian Vettel a hard time, so maybe we might still be underestimating Jean-Eric Vergne's talent, and we know he's a very good driver because coming through the ranks, he blitzed everything. So we all know Jean-Eric Vergne's good, and I think it would be totally unfair to replace him mid-season with Carlos Sainz Jr., who didn't really do too much last season in GP3, and I know new season GP3 hasn't even started yet, so let's find out how Carlos Sainz Jr. tackles this year's GP3 season. I think he's in GP3 still. I don't think he is. I think he's actually in GP2. My mistake. Sauber do not, as I said, now moving on to Sauber. Sauber do not look strong reliability-wise with Sutil yet again. 3 races in a row where he's retired and Gutierrez is in a race of his own and nowhere. So Sauber really have to pull a finger out in a way to try and get their season back on track to become the Sauber that we knew back in 2012 and at the back end of the 2013 season. But you could say they had Hulkenberg, and that was the only reason why they were quick. So interesting to see what will happen with Sauber. Marussia lost out to Caterham at the last corner, the second to last corner, hairpin at turn 14. Kobayashi doing a fantastic move on Jules Bianchi in the hairpin to claim 17th place, and then Kobayashi winning the little battle between the Marussia and the Caterham. So it was good from Kobayashi, sold Jules Bianchi a great dummy, much more experienced driver Kobayashi, and he got the job done excellently. But that was the Chinese Grand Prix. It was a okay Grand Prix. I knew it wasn't gonna hit the heights of Bahrain. I think Formula One psyched up itself a little bit too much. But in China, it proved the race that it could be if the tyre, obviously I don't think it was as good as the 2012 Grand Prix, but that tyres dominated that Grand Prix. The tyres didn't really dominate this year's Grand Prix, so therefore it wasn't as exciting. But yet there was still some decent races. Rosberg coming through the field, and McLaren, watching them drop back wasn't really good to see if you're an English fan, but for a Formula 1 fan like I am, it's quite interesting. But that is really all that's left for me to say. Make sure you join me next time for the Spanish Grand Prix in a couple of weeks' time, 3 weeks' time now for the Spanish Grand Prix. So join me then, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.